So kindly take your respective seats. All right, so welcome back to session 2. We'll focus on building a future-proof fintech strategy with AI. Moderating this session is Mohammad Rashid, Chief Compliance Officer from JinglePay UAE. Joining him on the panel are Mohammad Ibrahim, co-founder InvoiceMate from UAE, Ibrahim Amin, founder and chairman Delson Associate, Vinay Handa, Finance Project and Automation from LV Insurance UK. I welcome all the panelists on the stage and the moderator. A big round of applause. Now over to the moderator.
Please. Two. Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this panel discussion. Since morning when I came to this event, I heard a lot about AI, generative AI, different forms of AI, different discussions on AI. And I know going forward, next sessions, there will be so much discussion on AI. I have experts sitting here with me. Definitely we are going to touch base AI, but very interesting points I heard from the last session, particularly Salman's session, when he mentioned about how AI is progressing, adaptability in AI, and the challenges being faced by the companies. I think this is really interesting topic from end users' experience and what's their experience adopting AI solutions. So without taking further time, I'm going to pass on to my panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll take it from there. So probably I'll start from Sir Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Rashid. So I am Ibrahim Amin. I'm basically heading two CAPs. So one is Delson's Group, which is a financial consultancy firm across Southeast Asia. So we are based in China, Singapore, Indonesia, Pakistan, and UAE. So we are helping actually banks and financial institutions and fintechs to adopt AI and adopt data and how to structure them and how to go to market. And I am wearing another cap, which is I am the chairman of a Freelancers Association, which is one of the fourth largest community in the world in Pakistan. So helping them again on the same forefronts, enabling them on AI-based startups, AI-based freelancing work in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Vinay, over to you.
So I'm Vinay Handa. I'm from just on the outskirts of London, in England. And I'm ACCA qualified accountant, and I've had 25 years experience in finance, mainly within financial services, that's banking and insurance. And I'm currently working with LV Insurance. I've been there a number of times when they've implemented new underwriting systems and how that all integrates into an ERP system. And ultimately, then how do we output quality kind of data, quality reporting for the kind of executive summaries, executive leaders to make kind of decisions? How do they strategize on the various data that comes out? And ultimately, it's to gain better customer experience. How do we leverage off kind of the changes in technology, especially around AI, to enhance our end user capability in finance? But ultimately, how do we then transfer that across to an ultimate customer experience and building more customers, more revenue for companies? So yeah, that's a bit of an intro for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vinay. Ibrahim, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm the second Ibrahim on the panel, a bit younger than the first one. I'm the co-founder and CEO of InvoiceMate. We are a UAE-based fintech that is essentially providing working capital finance solutions with the AI-native core for both onboarding investors, onboarding borrowers, and helping financial risk officers automate their work, basically. So we are enhancing the entire working capital finance user journey through the help of AI.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. So the interesting thing is this panel is none of us is AI expert. We all are end users. So like for example, if I give you my example, after the announcement of DeepSeek, I was really curious to know and see what are the results this DeepSeek or other AI applications are generating. So I did a small comparison. And the comparison I did is, I posed a small question about myself to all these three big applications, whether it is ChatGPT, whether it is DeepSeek, whether it is Copilot. And surprisingly, I got significantly different results. So I was really curious to know and surprised what's the level of trust on these applications if these are generating different results. Because their claim definitely, again, not especially the three applications, but because I did my this small task for myself to understand, can I rely on these applications or maybe other applications? So this is from end user perspective, I was thinking about what to rely, can I trust or not? Another question I was discussing with the team members yesterday, I'm the end user. In my group, we have a big AI company. I will represent FinTech. My group, a big AI company, they are producing solutions for so many groups and companies. But I am unable to leverage their expertise. I'm unable to see how can we collaborate. So these are the challenges usually end users face when it comes to AI. There's so much discussion happening, we understand and we respect this. But when it comes to true use cases, starting from the end user, how they can adapt, what skill sets they have to adapt AI is a big question for the end user. So probably I'll start from Ibrahim yourself, because Ibrahim is expert in and he has extensive experience in credit scoring, risk engine. So Ibrahim, credit has traditionally been a data-driven or heavy industry. How AI helping credit companies or credit system optimize processes, enhance customer experiences, or manage risk is an evolving data landscape. So what do you think?
Dot on the point. You mentioned AI perfectly right. So we are experiencing the same problem. So one is the solution and one is the problem. So in Pakistan, there are 54 banks. So I'll give you one of the biggest examples. Fifth largest country in the world, having a population of 250 million people. And the bankable people there are 150 million. So 54 banks, one of the largest banks in Southeast Asia. And then a fintech leveraging AI credit scoring models. So 54 banks, when we talk about credit scoring, so they are totally on ground zero. They don't have any structured data. They don't have any type of technology from which they can process their financial transaction and credit scoring. So they are all human-based, all practical human-based. And then there is a fintech which came into existence last 10, 15 years back, is JazzCash. So they have almost 60 million customers now. And they are adopting telco-based AI scoring engine model. So they have a structured data and they are processing 160,000 loans a day. So this is the basic difference and gap, which I don't think any bank here. So let me give you an example for Dubai. So there are 2 million laborers, Pakistanis, who are working here and none of them has a bank account. So they are all excluded and nobody is building any structured data on them.
Structured data, yeah.
So there is no structured data, there is nothing on them, there is no data on them. So that is where basic concepts, basic AI structured practical experience should adopt here in Dubai also and around the world. be it India. India is, very advanced, but Bangladesh, Egypt. So there are 4 communities here. Egypt is one of the largest communities here also. Africans are here. Egyptians are here. Then Bangladeshis are here. So 4 biggest communities, millions of people, there is no structured data. And if there is no structured data, so how to adopt AI and implement and do all those credit scoring? And they are totally not bankable. They are not even financially included. So how to work around them? So that's the biggest question.
That's interesting. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Vinay, over to you. Something about insurance. Automation and AI often go hand in hand. From your experience with insurance, how do you view AI's role in improving operational efficiency? Are there examples where it has successfully bridged gaps between strategy and execution? What do you think, Vinay?
Okay, within financial services, insurance and banking, if we look at operational efficiency, that's a strategy which is implemented in a lot of companies. First of all, you have the overall strategy, and then there's the kind of digital transformation strategy which goes hand in hand. What we're finding is that the alignment of those strategy, the time frame, now the digital strategy time frame used to be over 4 years, going years back, but now we see that shortening because of the rapid changes that we're seeing in technology, the capabilities that are out there. So to have that alignment is firstly a challenge, but ultimately what a company wants to do is have operational efficiency. If you look at the end-to-end journey from, say, an insurance policy, from marketing through to pricing, using machine learning capabilities to look at data of pricing, looking at claims, how do we monitor and kind of assess those kind of claims, recoveries that happen, and then ultimately looking at, after kind of claims, looking at reinsurance. You're looking at very much how, using data, how are we going to use the data to actually make changes within organizations to lend the right information to the senior leaders to make change. And ultimately, AI is going to drive, it's going to be hand in hand. So I don't see it kind of overtaking the kind of the processes. We must leverage off what's available, and leveraging that is down to time, resources. Each company is very different in its kind of time frame. But yeah, it's ultimately it's a reduction of costs. You're looking at reducing time, reducing the resources that produce the data. But one of the kind of challenges around that is the data and how we trust actually the implementation of what we're going to leverage off.
This is a good point, Vinay. So I just want to add one more question. When it comes to implementation, using our typical or conventional technology to implement in a financial institution as compared to implementation of AI solution in the same company, what difference do you see? Because what happens when it comes to the traditional conventional system implementation, such as core banking application, tested. Yeah. We understand the roadmap. We know the cost. Yeah. Everything is so much clear. But when it comes to implementation of AI solution, it could be different. What do you think, how it could be different?
That's right, because you're leveraging off technology which is changing. So what you might implement now will have to be upgraded within within a few months. I was going to be a bit generous and say 12 to 18 months, but we know how rapidly it's changing. So that's why I was talking about the digital strategy within companies. It's shortening as we kind of experience what we're working through on a project-based environment. And look, in terms of the normal kind of ERP kind of implementations, and it is a big differential between like a normal kind of project implementation against data-driven AI projects.
And I'm happy to take any question or comment from this side as well, from cost perspective, because my experience from AI, because again, we are in transition phase. It's not fully developed or ready yet. So, in what I notice or what I experience is the cost is relatively high as compared to the conventional ERPs because it's being developed. So, any thought or any view, sir, yourself?
I want to add on that thing. I think I have.
Okay, you have. Good.
I think that adding on what you said, if the cost of maintaining AI is, as it can be imagined, higher, then the changes are radical. They are always you have to be one for upfront and upfront and upfront. If the cost is keep on adding to the budget of a company, the question is why they should use AI then?
No, that's interesting point. You want to answer, Ibrahim?
Perfectly, I agree to what my friend has said, because we are actually experiencing this and we are passing on this cost to the consumers when we are lending them. And it's a significantly high cost of doing business, on day-to-day business. So you will be surprised to know that we are charging the customers on nano lending 5% per week, 20% per month. It's a significantly high cost. So I agree to what
I think one more angle is the size of the company. Because what happens is small size of a company, such as startups, when we talk about fintech, typically startups, they do not consider typically AI unless it's a completely technology-based company or AI is the basic component. Amira is there, definitely she can comment on this. But other than technology companies, although it's fintech, but they are into financial services, regulated activities, they cannot bear this much cost. So I understand long-term big companies, long-term plan, it reduces cost significantly, fully agree. Makes sense, perfect. But small companies, it is difficult to really take on these AI solutions. It's expensive, you understand, and it's not just the cost is high. The problem is the cost of testing this application and the cost of any non-compliance is another challenge, because regulators, they have their specific mindset. They want to see something from a specific angle, and we are in UAE and we understand if you see the regulation, compare UAE regulation as compared to the other parts of the world, very specifics. Central Bank of UAE give very specifics in their regulation and they want to see some very specific processes. It is really difficult to develop immediately, and if you develop, definitely there is a cost. So I think small companies, it is difficult to consider AI in the beginning, but long-term big companies definitely they consider. So that's my view.
One thing that I just to like to add.
Yeah.
So basically, the costs it's the same as like you would develop a website in 1990s, right? The cost of developing a website or publishing ads on the website was very high, and small businesses were not developing that. But as you see now, if a business doesn't have a website, it's the same as having no digital footprint. So I would say, like within the next 5 odd years, the cost of using actually AI would decrease drastically, and it would be something that is sort of like a prerequisite to entry to market. So I think, right now we're still a bit too early in terms of small businesses applying AI on each of their processes. But moving down the road, let's say 1 year or 1.5 year down the road, the costs were decreasing. Like you saw with the DeepSeek Shibaku, the world understood that, okay, computing is not that expensive as it was portrayed to be. So I think moving forward within the next couple of months, we'll see a
Vinay, you want to add something?
Oh yeah, just to add, so you talked about scale. So with small companies, the costs may be high, but with larger companies, what we experience is just the legacy systems issues and how we integrate and modify kind of reporting that comes out from that. So dependent on the scale of the companies, it has its own challenges, not necessarily cost. So if I kind of use LV Insurance as an example, just slightly away from AI, we're using kind of what's called like AI-infused SaaS system called SmartCom. So what we're trying to do is use SmartCom to automate emails and letters to chase kind of debt on commission. And so before that was that's a manual task that someone has to key away, look at a report, send emails, then keep on chasing, send letters, potentially for legal action. What we've had to do is look at the end-to-end process of that, but then how can we enhance and automate, in effect, digitalize that process? And so what we have built are automatic triggers based on data around debt. Now, obviously, we have to trust the data first. That's a lot of testing that goes with that. But there are some examples of why we do need some type of AI-based or AI-infused kind of systems to just improve our efficiency and our operating models within companies.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ibrahim, over to you. So AI integration into fintech is not just a technological challenge, but also a leadership one. Being a leader of your company, how should leaders rethink their strategies to foster an AI-driven culture within the organization?
Well, it's a very fair point, to be very honest. When we were developing our models to sort of automate the manual grunt work processes and reduce the workforce, there was a big question that, okay, if we do it, we have pros and cons. Of course, everything has pros and cons. And the biggest pros are that, okay, you're leading the industry, like Ibrahim Bhai mentioned, that out of the 54 banks, none of them are using AI-based credit models. And as of that, they lack their presence in the market. So it's you getting the opportunity to become the forefront leader of the entire industry. And the con is basically the tireless working hours of developing this technology or the high cost of acquiring this. But if I, as a leader, basically have to do the cost-benefit analysis, I would say that in the long run, you end up reducing a lot of your costs that you would spend up on resources to do the manual work that can be automated, and then at the end, you're basically presenting an enhanced user journey and user experience towards the end customer, making your brand more credible and more beneficial.
Good point. Thank you so much. So I think there's so much discussion about trust, and of course, Vinay, you spoke about trust a bit initially. And in earlier conversation, there was one point, an interesting point from one of the participants, that can computer handle emotions? It was a very interesting point, sir. Very interesting point. Now, the way I see is, and there was one argument that because emotions you can convert into codes, definitely you can handle, one argument. But my question is, do we understand human emotions completely? If we do not understand human emotions completely, how can we code it? So from trust perspective, there is another angle. So this is one point. Second angle is synthetic data when it comes to AI. So there is a discussion about utilizing synthetic data, structured data already available. Like for example, small companies, interesting point. And I'll share my experience. So when I was developing AI model for my company, I did not have any data. Now, I could have used synthetic data, but this is not specific to my company. This data is not a true representation of my customers, what they are doing. So if I use synthetic data, am I able to develop the right AI model for my company? So I think from challenges perspective and trust perspective, Vinay, what do you think?
Yeah, so the whole trust issue around new data and how that flows in. As accountants, to be honest, we just test everything to death, and there is a lot of issues around trusting the data and around looking at how that also feeds into the overall strategy of each company. Each company is different, so there has to be an appetite to grow organically, and there has to be an appetite to really just grow a business. And the only way you can do that ultimately is to kind of take your accountant's hat off and ultimately trust in what you're looking at.
No, thank you so much, Vinay. Sir, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, trust the process.
Yeah, that's ultimately what we need to do.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the,
Yeah.
excellent. Okay, good. So Ibrahim sir, probably I'll move to you, and because you have extensive experience in advisory and consulting. So considering your experience, given your expertise in strategic advisory, what critical components should organization focus on when designing an AI-driven fintech strategy to ensure its resilience in their operations? What do you think?
So again, coming back to investment in their technology, in their regulatory technology, in their startups technology. So what basically the solution we need here for startups here is there is no roadmap, there is no guidance. So for a startup, you must have experienced, we were talking the other day that a startup ended up spending $200 million, and eventually they found out that they have wasted $100 million. So there is no guideline, there's no guidance. So we need a platform to create a guidance for the startups and matured banks even. They don't have any guidance, they don't have any roadmap how to adopt AI. So where is a platform here? Where is the guidance here? So we basically lack a guidance. So for startups, on credit scoring, I would advise to first invest on the regulation, RegTech, and the structured data. I would advise new startups to partner with telcos to start with, to get the data, because telcos have an extensive database, and utility bill companies. So gathering what you said, gathering the data to start with is the key of essence, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. When I
Just to add to that, yeah, you've got to have the right data to begin with, right? Because if you're dealing with kind of like what I call crap data, you're going to get crap out. So you've got to trust the data as well, and how we're going to rebuild that to have the right outcome, yeah.
So this is an interesting point. Again, I'm still, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, it reminds me back in the, I don't know, 20 years ago, when the open source was introduced rather than the closed source for software development. It reminds me of the same story. It was open source, it was everywhere, everybody used it, everybody was very anxious in order to use it. What happened later? Open source ran in parallel with the closed source, etc., etc.
Yes.
But still, we went back there. Is there a danger or a risk for that also to happen?
Vinay?
No,
Yes.
I think a lot of it comes down to there is a danger, yeah. But a lot of it also comes down to where the companies actually are located. Now, I can only talk from a UK perspective, having worked in there, and the kind of appetite to embrace AI. Recently, the government announced the AI initiative, and I thought, for me, it was actually quite late to the party, because having been to this conference last year, we've been talking about this for years, and then the UK comes along and starts saying, yeah, we're going to start doing that. But what's happening in the UAE is full embracement, acceleration. So you've got kind of regional misalignment, not regional, like international misalignment, and it's not really helping the movement of finance move forward. That's my kind of view on it.
No, good point. Thank you. And one point, Vinay, you mentioned about data, because AI is, of course, very much data-driven. But again, my question, if there is no data, small companies, they do not have data available. What can they do? How can they leverage AI technology or whatever technology is? And I'll give you one example. So I had a discussion with the DFSA, our regulator, and the first question they asked in the beginning is, how do you see one specific product, classify their risk? Where do you think, what is it, a low, medium, or high risk product? How can I classify it? I don't have data. But they were insisting to classify or rate your product in different categories. So the problem is, we understand AI is very much data driven, but from a regulated business perspective, if you see, when small companies particularly, because we are most of us, we somehow belongs to startups, and my colleague Amira sitting here as well, we face this challenge. And the challenge we faced is regulator has certain expectations. They want to see you take decision now. This is the time. On the other hand, small company, just a startup, we don't have data available. So I think this is something we need to figure out, that how to handle the situation. Can we trust other solutions or already available data? To some extent, could be. There is a possibility, but every institution has a unique situation. Situation in terms of your customer, situation in terms of your risk, system in terms of your risk appetite, system in terms of resources you have. So every company is unique. So I think it is very, very interesting to understand and to see how regulators see these small companies operate, and they implement those. So my view is regulators, particularly in regular industry, payments or any other industry, regulators play a very critical role, important role to advise these companies, especially small startups, to move to AI. I think this is a fair point. Ibrahim, over to you. how can traditional financial institutions adopt AI to remain competitive, especially when they face stiff competition from agile fintech startups?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen recently is acquisition of these fintech startups by traditional finance companies.
Yeah.
This is obviously the more expensive route that they take. If in order to, let's say, enhance their operational capacity, they can just acquire an ongoing innovative startup and incorporate the practices within their workflows. That's number one thing. Secondly is, of course, traditional financial institutions, it's when you're talking about innovation, it doesn't mean just copying what someone else does. So it's basically you need to have, there needs to be a need from within. If a traditional financial institution wants to incorporate AI and incorporate these modern practices in their workflows, it needs to start from the top leadership. They need to make a decision that we need to do this, and then it needs to trickle down towards the management level. So, hire external basically resources to incorporate advanced practices in the workflows, and then my personal preference would be, just acquire innovative fintech to fast track the entire process.
Yes,
Can I add to that? So, just adding to that. So with the traditional finance institutions, if I give an example of what's happening in UK on kind of mortgage lending. So there's a company called MCube, MQUBE. They're relatively kind of what I call a innovative mortgage lending company using AI-based or data-driven kind of platform to basically enhance the underwriting system on loan processes. So within the UK, we know that if you're applying for a mortgage, it's a painful process, loads of underwriting, back and forth, loads of questions, takes weeks. But what MCube have developed is in their lending arm, which is Empowered Mortgages, is to really drive that underwriting process within quick time, like minutes. So they're leveraging to run all of the data in real time on credit scoring, on personal records, etc., to come with that outcome a lot more quicker and smarter. So the way that we see, as I'm agreeing here, is that you got to leverage off the innovation from fintechs in big companies to really kind of collaborate and move forward. Otherwise, the traditional finance institutions will be left behind.
Thank you so much, Vinay. So the last question, and it's for everyone. I would like to you guys to share your views. If you could, Ibrahim, maybe I'll start from you. If you could give one piece of advice to fintech startups looking to integrate AI into their operations, what would it be?
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Check. So, like you said, that every business model has a unique case. So, find out. Just like I'll give an example of two fintechs in Pakistan. So, one is Easy Paisa and the other is Jazz Cash. So, Easy Paisa failed. The startup, they invented the model. But learning on their mistakes, Jazz Cash succeeded. So that's what I want to say, the basic advice to the startups, to specify the business model, like you said, every business model is unique, and then see who achieved the success and how, and follow their path. Because as what I said earlier, that there is no platform to guide a fintech here, anywhere in the world, how to start, what to adopt. Eventually, what startups are doing, just like we said, we were discussing some other day, that they are losing $100 million. They'll come to know after some time, after 4 or 5 years, that they spent $200 million and $100 million is wasted, right? So that's what my advice is.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Vinay, any advice from your side?
I think it's pretty simple. Just drive and thrive innovation. Just further to what he said, innovation really is going to drive the fintech industry, and there's such there's exciting opportunities really. So just go for it.
Ibrahim.
Yeah, I would just like to say, it's first of all, understand the problem that you want to solve with the AI, not just developing AI or implementing AI just for the sake of AI. It's basically you need to understand what sort of pain points you want to solve. And if you have that problem written out, then the solution becomes far easier.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. So I'll take a pause here, and if there's any question from the team sitting there, participants, any question, please feel free to ask. No? Yeah, sorry.
From UK. Hello. I've worked with major big. Hi, thank you very much. So I've worked with several large banks that are based in London, and I understand the issue with the infrastructure. Currently, I'm helping another bank in a different location with the same issue. And my question is, what do you suggest is best to do with the old legacy infrastructure? Do we just scrap it and buy sort of new AI automation systems? How do we do that? Because otherwise it just takes forever to build all the connections. It's a hard job. So how do we speed it up?
You're right, it's very challenging. So what you've got in kind of the more established finance institutions are a history of legacy systems, bolt-on systems along the way. For me, the best thing to do is just scrap it and be fresh. But you know how ingrained these systems are within these institutions and outside of how they link into other kind of organizations as well. So it's a hard one. It comes down to investment as well. A lot of companies don't want to spend millions they're kind of short-sighted to embrace the change. Again, that comes down to their strategy of how they want to build their digital transformation. Each company is very different. But the challenge is there are some legacy systems that need updating urgently.
All right, so just wanted to clarify to you what is actually happening. As I told you, I was the CEO of 2 large banks in Europe before moving into Web3, right? We are already doing it, but in a very particular way. We're simply giving different names to the same process. To give you one, called staking, right? In the blockchain, Web3, whatever world. Staking is nothing more than lending the new asset class to people. So before, I will call it a loan to you. I'll lend you dollars or euros. Today I'll call it staking because I'm just lending you Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? That's what's happening. So we're just using the same logic and moving into a new world with new names and a different database called the blockchain. So it is happening that way. Now, the future, I don't think nobody can read the future, but that's what's happening. So I teach at 3 universities, and that's what I tell my students at the MBA schools. We're just using different names for the same thing. That's all. I'm not sure if we're going to scrap it or not. We know the banks will not exist the way they are today in 10 years. Banks will be just a screen, and the rest, we don't know what is going to be behind. But the actual processes are going to be the same. They just have different names and are based on a different platform or a different database. That's all.
Just like to add here, it's not about scratching and scraping the entire already existing software and then building a new one. It's like building a new car. You don't scrap the old model and just reinvent the new model. You take what you have, what's working fine, and you just slowly start to enhance the features. That's how you can evolve the workflows in a more sustainable manner, rather than just throwing that car in the bin, start building a new car. So it's like that. You just take a problem and then sort of solve it step by step.
Thank you so much, Ibrahim. I think I'm just going to end this session, but this is a very interesting topic, and I'll share one experience of mine. My former institute bank I used to work for, we got good funding from Melinda and Gates Foundation. And when we got this funding, the purpose of this funding was to introduce a saving account in our bank. There was a specific reason to support microfinance customers. And we took the product team, they took this product, they went to the president and the respective committee, and they said, it's a saving account. let's call it A or B or C and D. And the president was so frustrated. He said, ultimately, it's a saving account. Whatever the name you are going to give it, it will remain saving account because the functionality, the model will remain same unless you change something. It's no longer an account, it's something else. So I think I fully agree with the team here and everyone that unless we change the business models, financial models completely, do we really need all the time the typical deposit accounts? Do we need the existing microfinance models or credit model where we as an institution decide this customer is risky? I decide as an institution this customer is risky. Am I going to follow this approach long term or not? So I think the role of AI would be very much helpful because human intelligence, human behavior, whether it is addressing 100% or not, but to some extent it is helping machines to think from human angle. Like for example, transaction monitoring from compliance world, my colleague is sitting here. One of the company, I got introduced by someone and I sat with them and I said, okay, show me what exactly you do. How your transaction monitoring is different from the typical conventional systems. And it was different. It was different because it's not based on my rules, the one I notify them, the one I develop as a human. I develop 6-7 rules, and that this based on my assessment, my judgment that these are the best rules, but this is not correct. AI, I think, somehow is helping to give you more ideas, more rules, new concepts. So I think the role is AI definitely very, very important. So I think, thank you so much everyone sitting here and for your questions. I think really appreciate and this interactive session. Ibrahim, Vinay, Ibrahim yourself. And if you guys have any question, any comment, any thoughts, we are here. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for this wonderful session. Now I request a moderator to honor a panelist. All right, now let's move to the next talk by Mr. Nick Johnson, Managing Director of EGN Executive Global Network from Singapore, and he'll deliver a talk on leading with authenticity in a disrupted world. I welcome him. Over to you. So you can use this one or you want a handheld?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's coming up to lunchtime, so I promise to not go overtime. But we have an important communication to have now, and we have an important presentation about the human side of all of this. We spoke about emotions, we spoke about AI, we talked about disruption and so on, and it's important that we don't lose ourselves through this. So I'm Nick Johnson, and I've written a book on executive loneliness. I have interviewed successful entrepreneurs and executives in the workplace on their feelings of isolation and mental health. So I will take you through a journey now, I will also include my story and those of others inside my little talk, just so we remember ourselves. So I'm based in Singapore, where I'm running confidential peer groups. I'm running confidential peer groups, which is for entrepreneurs and executives, where they can discuss the work-related challenges. We have now groups also in Kuala Lumpur and in Jakarta. So I'm listening to 900 executives and entrepreneurs about the real challenges. What is keeping them up at night? What are the real challenges that they are going through? What is happening to them when their companies are going under? So that's on the professional side. On the personal side, I'm also running men's group, men's support group. Many of the men have been very successful, perhaps in the career, and they are 50, 60 years of age. They made all the money, and suddenly they're going through a big life-changing event, maybe a divorce, maybe they become a fight about custody. With that, they lose themselves, and with that, the business collapses as well. So I'm here to talk on this topic, and not perhaps for yourself, if everything is great in your life, but the people you work with, perhaps your colleagues, and perhaps some family members, and some of the friends can go through this. So I want to bring to the table here the thought and the topic of holistic leadership, which means that we don't only bring in the professional responsibility with us to the work. We also bring in the physical health, the mental health, the social health, and the well-being with us. That's when we can perform at the very best. And that's what I call holistic leadership. And that's where we can be the authentic self. Let me start by sharing a story of someone who was not authentic, someone who was not holistic. Let me share briefly my story. I was born in Sweden, where I followed my father's footsteps, a blue-collar worker. He was in construction. I became a construction painter. That was how I grew up back in Sweden, until one day I rode my motorbike and I crashed into a car, injured my neck and my back, and I thought life was over, but it set me up to start working on myself. I started coming back to high school, and age 23, I moved to Australia to study at university. I remember very clearly the first day at university in Australia. The dean was talking about success in the workplace. He painted a picture of football players in the World Cup. He said the winners, they lift the trophy, and they are so happy. The silver medalists walk off the pitch crying. He said, why don't we approach our business life like that? Why don't we approach our studies like this? He was trying to sell us that we should study hard to get scholarship, top the classes, get on dean's list. He was painting this picture of everything we could get. Something inside me really got on fire that day. And I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to get all of that. I went out there, got a scholarship, topped the classes. When my friends and students were out partying, having fun, I was studying because I wanted to get ahead. That's the mindset that later on then brought me into the workplace. I've had a very successful career, starting in PR and advertising, working my way up the ladder. This is a picture about 11 years ago in Indonesia as a general manager of a big medical company running 72 hospitals and clinics. I was perhaps at the peak of my career, doing everything great, but suddenly things started to collapse around me. I started to make some mistakes in the workplace. At home, I went through a divorce, and I lost my health. Very quickly, I gained about 30 kilos, and while I have a smile on my face there, it's more to protect myself from someone questioning me. I was not ready to discuss what was happening with me. Typical male, perhaps, I just walked very silently. I resigned from this great job without any explanation. I filed for a divorce with my ex-wife without having any conversation about it whatsoever. I then started to jump from job to job, starting companies, funding companies, failing, all of them. I lost all my money, everything I saved up. I even cashed in my son's university plan. That was the rock bottom I hit, and with that, I thought life was over. This was when my left foot swallowed up like an elephant foot. And it was so big that I couldn't get on a shoe. I started then to really wonder what's going on here. It was later on diagnosed by a psychologist as a psychosomatic illness. Psychosomatic illness is something that shows up on the body that is happening on the inside showing up on the outside in this case. So basically I had spent by this time 3 years in denial and not speaking to anybody about what's going on in my life. I did everything I could to protect it until my body started showing up like this. That led me even to a worse place, dark places, start thinking that life was over. In 2018, I started to plan for my own funeral. I wrote a will, my testament, I signed up for life insurance, and I basically sent documentation of this to my parents, to my ex-wife, and to my son, who was only a few years age. I created an email for him, and I sent the documentation for him to have for the future. So I basically cleaned up my act. At this stage, I was not suicidal, but I thought that life was over. I really didn't think my health would pull me through, and it was no way I was going to talk to anybody about these challenges, so therefore I was going to die with them. Today though, fast forward, 7 years forward, I'm remarried, a second chance. I'm in a happy, open marriage where I'm speaking about my challenges, if I have some, and I'm there to listen to her. I'm an Ironman athlete. I travel around the world. I just came from New Zealand in December, where I competed in the World Championship in my age group for 50 years old. So I'm living the life that I never could dream about, full physical health. I'm traveling around the world to speak at events like this and conducting workshops, breaking down barriers between teams, connecting them when they are falling off. I'm working with as a coach, mainly with men also, who are going through challenges, many of them in my age, 50, 60 years of age, going through perhaps divorces, helping them to go through it without having to go through the journey that I had. And then based on that, I created a 5-step model. So before we go on lunch, let me just share this 5-step model that I'm helping executives, entrepreneurs, and teams to go through. I did some basically my learnings from the 5 steps of coming back to life. This is the journey I've taken. The first step was to surrender. I had to give up on my way of thinking. I had to really surrender. At the time of my bottom, there was a lot of things I was in denial with. I was doing everything I could to defend it. My coping mechanism at that time, because I didn't speak, I needed something, I turned to alcohol. So after work, I would go to the bar, drink with my friends, having great time. In fact, I had great friends. We watched sport together, we played golf together. But I went there to forget about the challenges I had. I didn't tell them about my challenges. I didn't give them a chance to help me. So I was very much having a conversation on the edge. I didn't go deep enough. I had to change that. So what happened then back in 2018, I had to surrender. I decided to tell one human being about how I felt internally, and that changed everything. You might have heard a saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. A problem shared is a problem halved. I could feel it. When I shared my problem, I could feel the pain starting to lift from me. I could feel it being lifted from me. I then went to have other conversations. I went to doctors, psychologists, therapists. I got the help I needed. And I had a V-shaped recovery. Very quickly, in a few days, the swollen foot disappeared. And I was coming back to life. From just speaking up, taking ownership for my own struggle, talking about it. And today is yet one more step for me to surrender by sharing my story with you. Because it could be someone perhaps in your life who needs to surrender something. And I hope that you take this to heart, because that was really the life-saving moment for me to surrender and start just speaking and seeking help. The second point was a purpose. Until that day, my first purpose in life was to take the job my father wanted, to be a painter. That was his purpose, really, and I followed his footsteps. The second purpose was to please my teachers at school, get scholarship, top the classes, making them happy. Then I had a successful career over 10 years, where I was pleasing all the bosses, hitting the KPIs, the targets, getting the promotions, and that was all my purpose. But when I lost that, I lost everything. I defined myself in the workplace, and I have lost some of my friends, sadly, to suicide because they did just that. I was over in 2013, before I got sick, to spend some time with Tony Hsieh when he had just sold his company for $2 billion to Amazon. Here was an entrepreneur at his best days, and I knew that he loved people. He also realized that he cannot be lonely. So he had even installed in his home a home cinema, a home bar, and he had 5 guest rooms inside his apartment in Las Vegas because he needed to be surrounded of people. When the pandemic came, he went up and isolated himself, and sadly he's no longer with us. I could stand the whole day to talk about these stories of the people we've lost because perhaps they didn't really have a deeper purpose. My purpose today is to help people to go through these challenges. And I'm here to talk and share that I believe we need to be comfortable discussing the uncomfortable. With that, we can stop and we can prevent suicides. So that's one of my purposes today. So I ask you to think about what's your purpose, apart from just building your companies, because many times, as we shared today, they might fail, and then we shouldn't fail with it. The third one I had to work on was the connection. It was time for me to take off my mask and deflate my ego by taking responsibility, being open, and sharing what's going on in my life. And that's a journey that I continue still today to work on myself, but also having connection with other people, having safe spaces where we can be honest. As I shared before, I had male friends, great friends who I spoke with and had fun, but not who I shared my challenges with. So ask yourself, do you have some safe spaces? It can be coaches, mentors, friends, who we are honest with, where we share if there's something on our mind. If we're going to bed one night and we have that feeling that something is not right, make sure that we have someone we can share about that and talk to about that. Also professionally, we can have a lot of challenges at work. Think about, are there like-minded peers who you can talk to? That's what I'm doing now, setting up masterminds, peer groups, and we can do this ourselves. Think about, are there some entrepreneurs just like you or other executives in similar roles who you can team up with and do a mastermind group where we come to not only impress each other, but rather discuss what are our challenges in a safe, confidential manner. So build those connections. Then fourth, what I learned was that it's not enough just to have career aspirations. I'm sure that most of us in this room are high achievers, and I call myself an anxious overachiever. Looking back at my studies and my work, perhaps I worked extra to achieve because I wanted to prove something to myself and others. So think about also what goals can we have outside our work. Now I define myself also by being an athlete, there's sport there's other goals in giving back and working on other things, not just the career and work, because I lost my fair share in companies. Then finally, the discipline and the accountability to stick to it. That's what really made it. I have accountability partners, coaches all around the world to make sure I'm boxed in so I stay on this path of growth. So that's the 5 steps that I've taken through on my journey of becoming a true self, holistic self. And in summary, so bring with you not only the professional responsibility, even if you're an entrepreneur in your own company, but really, really also think about your social health. Social health means having vulnerable, open relationships. Think about your physical health with exercising and diet and so on. And also the resilience and mental health, bring it with you. And don't be like me or to be secret, silent, and protect your mental health. In fact, in my book, I asked the question to the people when I interview them, if you have a mental health issue and challenge, will you share it with your HR or your boss? 84% said no. 84% said no. The follow-up question was, would you seek professional help? 75% said no. So that is the issue. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to seek help for it because of the stigma. Then when you ask them why, well, I'm worried that someone will not want to do business with me then, or maybe I don't get the promotion if this leaks out there. And that's the issues. And then thinking back, that's why I also didn't seek help. I was terrified that someone will find out and maybe my career will be destroyed. Instead, it almost killed me. And sadly, I lost too many friends to this. So that was the message that I wanted to share today on holistic leadership. And I welcome any questions on this perhaps deep topic as we go for lunch. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn and continue the conversation. And I have in order to encourage someone to perhaps open up for a question, I have a copy of my book to the first question here today. Anyone? Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It's quite inspiring. I think that pretty much every entrepreneur goes through what you're saying. Not to the end degree of the suicidal part, but you know, there are up and downs in entrepreneurship life because we jump into the unknown, right? Any other company owners here? Right. So you know we jump into the unknown. It's a leap of faith what we do. So my question to you is, what's your advice for entrepreneurs specifically in the big question that you are posing to all of us, which is very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. So for entrepreneurs, I would, just like if it was an executive, I would separate the personal life and the professional life. So I would encourage everyone to make sure we have safe spaces personally. That means friends, perhaps some clubs, associations which we belong to, a women leaders network or a men's group where we feel that we can be open and talk to them. Coaches, mentors that we can talk to. So think about that on that side. On the professional side for entrepreneurs, definitely mentors that we are vulnerable and open and honest with. I had mentors. I had people like 10 years ahead in my career, but when I had my mentor calls with them, I would try to impress them, to show them how great I was, instead of starting the call and saying, hey, I have this problem, can you help me? So it's about being vulnerable.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you my experience, right?
Please.
So, like every entrepreneur, I go through up and downs every day. You know, some days I think that the whole company is going to go down. The next day, everything is going to be great, etc. And that's noise, and it complicates the life of an entrepreneur. Well, what I found, similar to you perhaps, is sports, right? I am training for the Global Tennis Championship for over 50 years old, which I invented myself, by the way, because I'm an entrepreneur, so I can invent anything I want. So I'm training for that Global, Tennis Championship right now. But the reason I'm saying this is because of the following. Every time I meet my coach at the Dubai, the Al Habtoor Hotel, you own the Al Habtoor Hotel? That's where we played, right? Here. I tell this guy that he's the cheapest psychiatrist in the world. And he goes like, what are you talking about? He says, yes, because in 1 hour of tennis, competitive tennis, he made me forget the world, including my wife, my kids, my companies, my partner. Nobody else exists. After 20 minutes, so this is for all of you, after 20 minutes of real hard sports, you reach something called nirvana. In my case, is that the only thing that exists is the next yellow ball that's coming to me. It is actually fantastic. So I recommend for the ones that are looking for that moment of nirvana where you forget everything, is that moment when you're doing competitive sports that you forget the rest of the world, including yourself. Because the only answer to the next second is, where are you going to place the ball? That's it. That's my personal experience. If it helps anybody, great. But sports is a fantastic way to forget about the world.
Absolutely. And the tennis balls for you are my bicycles. I love cycling in the forest. I love cycling in Dubai and the desert as well. Anyone else have any question before we go for lunch? Okay, we continue the conversation also over lunch, and I'm looking forward to having any one-on-one conversations. If you have something that is on your mind, I'm there for anyone. I always say that, happy to have a 30 minutes virtual coffee. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you. Thank you.
So, on behalf of World Finance Council, please accept the gratitude.
Thank you for the book.
Thank you.
I'll read it.
All right, so before we move to the lunch, let's have a group photo. I request everybody to come on the stage and have a group photo.
Can this thing taste?
Sarah is one of my friends.
Oh, sports.
There we go. I don't want to.
Thank you everyone. So it's time to enjoy the delicious lunch. So the lunch is served on one level down, Medley Restaurant.